What's up, everyone? So, we're going to just go ahead and start because I think this is a really important topic, especially because I think in medicine, we often think like everything will be fine, but I've personally had some of the hardest last few months that I've ever experienced emotionally, physically, just mentally, everything. And I wanted to make sure I voiced this because I think there's some of you who may be in the same boat, and I want you to know you're not alone. And I think that the feelings I'm feeling are not unique. I think a lot of people have these same feelings. And unfortunately, we live in a society where we don't talk about these things. So this video is hoping to kind of get at that and kind of talk about these things and at least get them out in the open. So if there's anyone out there who feels this way, know that you are not alone. And these are 5 things that I'm still struggling to come to terms with in medicine. And I'm hoping that this video helps me do that, but also helps you do that because I want you to know that you're probably not alone. So with that, I want to talk about the first thing that I've had a really tough time coming to terms with, which is the fact that medicine is a long road. And I know this is obvious, right? When I actually got into medical school, and even when I was applying, I was told this, and I was told this over and over again, medicine is long. But the problem is, I don't think I ever really acknowledged it, and it never meant as much to me as it does now. I'm almost 3 years done with medical school. I'm going to do my MBA, and then I have to do 1 more year before I'm finally going to get my MD. And then after that, I have at least a 3-year minimum residency. And then if I decide to do a competitive specialty, like surgery or something, that would be 7 years. And it's crazy to me because that's just so much time. That is a lot of time. And again, I know you're told this. You're told that medicine is at least 10, 12, 15 years of commitment. I think the reason why you realize the importance of that time even more is because it's happening, especially for most people, it's happening during your 20s and 30s, right? And already during your 20s and 30s, there are so many other things happening in your life that are also important, even if you weren't in medical school. Like, for example, if you were an engineer or if you were another career not in medicine, you have to think about potentially settling down. Where are you going to be for the rest of your life? And the crazy part is, in medicine, you have just medicine to worry about, and then you also have everything else, like these things that happen in your 20s and 30s that you have to worry about. Like, your relationships are also way more serious. Like, anytime now, if you're in a relationship, it has to take on such a higher level of intimacy because you have to be like, this has to be serious, you know? And that level, compounded with everything else that's happening in medicine already, is just tough to kind of come to terms with. And the next point that I still have such a hard time coming to terms with is that you will hit breaking points. It's not you may, it's not there's a chance, it is you will. And I think, again, this is really tough for pre-meds and even early med students to swallow because if you get into medical school, you're a badass, right? Like, you've worked your ass off. You may actually think like, dude, this is not going to happen to me. I know exactly how to study. I figured my whole life out. This is going to be great. But unfortunately, I hate to break it to you, I was told by my predecessors, and I was also the smartass who was like, yo, it's not going to happen to me. I don't break. I am stone cold. But guess what? Mentally, physically, and emotionally, I have had multiple breaking points already. And I can't think of many medical students who haven't. And if you are one of them, comment down below because you got a secret recipe that I need to learn about. But every medical student and almost every person in medicine has mental breaking points, physical breaking points, and emotional breaking points. And again, it's not just from medicine, it's from everything else that will be happening in your life, right? Again, your parents, the people you care about, are getting older while you're in med school. Your relationships are more serious. You may be in and out of relationships. There's big stake exams, right? Step 1 is 8 hours. Step 2 is 9 hours. Step 3 is 2 days, right? Like, all of this stuff comes in and they're all kind of hitting you at different points in your life. And for me, I actually hit a breaking point with step 1 and with step 2. I actually hit a breaking point during my clerkships as well, where I was like, damn, like, I don't know if I can do this. This is really hard. And when you hit these breaking points, it can really, really take a big toll on your mental, physical, and emotional health. And I think part of this happens because there's so many things in medicine that require you to balance what you want to do with what you need to do, right? No one wants to take a 9-hour exam. Trust me when I say no one wants to, but guess what? Everyone has to if they want to get their MD. And that is one of the issues. There's a lot of things in medicine. You have to jump through hoop after hoop after hoop. And unfortunately, some of those hoops are not things you ever want to do, but you have to do them. And that's when the conflict hits. You are forcing yourself to do these things primarily because this is the way the system is. And I want you to know that is okay, because when that happens, know that it's happened to many other people before you and take comfort in that and know that you will come back stronger. This thing this is probably the hardest one I've had trouble coming to terms with, is that there is such a thing as too much empathy. A lot of us go into medicine because we love helping people, which, is great. But the problem is there is such a thing as too much empathy. And it's happened to me enough times, and I'm only 1 or 2 years into my training as a medical student, where you see so many patients who will not only remind you of yourself, your younger self, your older self, but also remind you of your loved ones. And the issue is you will try to empathize with them because that's what makes a good doctor. But when that happens and you see yourself in them, the scary part is you will also see them suffering. And in the hospital and in day-to-day patient encounters, you see more suffering than you will ever imagine. And that is really scary. I don't think anyone knows just how scary it is unless you actually see it yourself. Patients go through a lot. There are patients in the hospital every day that go through more pain in a second than I've been through in my entire life, right? There is a lot of pain and suffering in this world, and that's the profession that medicine deals with. In medicine, you are seeing things every day that other people who are not in medicine may only see like 4 to 5 times in their entire life. Like, think about it. Someone who is not in medicine may have to deal with the death of a loved one maybe 4 or 5 times because they'll have their immediate family, and when they pass away, they have to kind of cope with that. And that's a very emotionally maturing experience, and it can be very troubling, but it's something that will help them grow. But when you're in medicine, you see death and suffering like that on a day-to-day basis. I saw that pretty regularly when I was in my clerkships, and that was really tough for me because, again, I saw myself in some of these patients. I saw the fear they had. When I've had fears about my own health, about my family's health, I saw, someone who may have reminded me of my mom. And when that happens and you see that person suffering, you're seeing it way more times than a normal person would. You're seeing it every day. Someone may only see it 4 to 10 times in their whole life, and you're seeing it every day. And that takes a piece out of you every time. And I think every doctor, every future physician finds a way to eventually cope with it. But I do want you to know it takes a lot out of you. Like, to this day, anytime I see a patient die, anytime I see a patient get an initial diagnosis of cancer, whatever it is, I can only imagine how scary that is, right? So there is such a thing as too much empathy, and I struggle to cope with that because I want to empathize because it makes you a better physician, but I realize when I empathize too much, it actually chips away internally, and that's actually really troubling. Next thing I still struggle with is that loneliness happens in medicine, and it happens in more ways than one. And I really struggle to cope with this because, again, I'm in med school and I'm 4 years in, and I've been studying for the last, 26 years of my life. And for the last 26 years of anyone else's life who's an engineer, anyone else, some of my best friends in the Bay, they're already financially independent. They're on the job market. My sister, hell, is already making money, right? And I'm over here like not even knowing what the hell a paycheck looks like. You're working 80-hour weeks. There's 12-hour procedures. You may be in the OR for days on days on days. When you're a resident, there may be days you may not see your spouse for weeks. And that's just one way. And last but not least, the other thing I really struggle with in medicine, and this wasn't a case for my first 2 years, but it actually hit me a lot more when I was studying for step 1 and step 2, is that every medical student, everyone in medicine, is a bunch of above average people who consistently feel below average. And this is a fact, okay? This is just how medicine is. Because guess what? Medicine is a hierarchy, right? As a med student, you will always feel like you don't nearly know enough as the residents do. And as a resident, you will always feel like you don't nearly know enough as an attending does. And as an attending, you may feel like you will never know enough as an attending who's been around for 30 years is. And that's because medicine is a hierarchy. And every day you have to learn more and more. And it's tough because those feelings of inadequacy, if you don't learn how to address them and you don't realize like, hey, this is normal, you can actually kind of put yourself in a self-propagating positive feedback loop that is very unhealthy. The other thing about feeling below average in medicine is that there's so many realms of knowledge. So you may be the smartest person in your class. You may have gotten the best step 1, step 2 score, but that may just be what book knowledge is. Then when it comes to clinical knowledge, there's so many of my classmates who maybe know a lot in the book world, but this is myself included. I know a lot about the book world. I go into the hospital and I'm like a headless chicken just running around figuring out like, what the hell is like a catheter? How do I put a catheter in? I don't know what's happening. How do I talk to the nurses? There's so many realms of knowledge in medicine that even if you feel like you're good at one thing, you will never fail to realize you're not good at another thing. Because then there's also practical knowledge. Do you know what to say to a patient? What if you offend a patient? How are you going to address that? There's also hands-on knowledge. Like when you go into an OR, how do you know to maintain the sterile field? How do you not embarrass yourself in front of the surgeon? How do you make sure you can be actively involved in the OR cases without stepping on anyone's toes, like quite literally? And then there's obviously a social knowledge. How do you work best on a team? So I want you to know it's normal. There will always be times that you feel below average, and that's fine. Everyone feels that way. The way medicine is structured is inherently made to make most people feel that way. Because guess what? There's always going to be someone who knows more than you, has more experience than you, and is better than you. But at the same time, try to use that as motivation to keep learning. That's the field you're in. I want you to know, like, if you're struggling in medical school, it is not a unique situation. It's not not an easy time by any means. You will be okay. I think we just have to go in there, reflect on these things. YouTube is a great way I do that, but I'm hoping by you watching this video, you can also reflect on this and know that, hey, I'm in the same boat as Prerak is, and yo, that boat is pretty big, and we got this. So with that being said, thank you all for watching. If you like this video, like, comment, share, and subscribe. I really hope if you were feeling down in the dumps, this brought you up a bit. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. Let me know if there's anything else you're feeling, and I'm more than happy to chat. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.